Hello, my name is Abigail and welcome back to Polyglot Progress. Today is May 21st, 2020, and as of almost exactly a week ago, I am officially done with school and officially a college graduate. Thank you all for being so patient as I took a bit of a hiatus throughout, honestly, all of college, but especially throughout this last year and especially throughout this last semester when I was thrown that second senior project and everything else that happened that made it a little bit hard to be making content for this channel. I'm really excited to be back. I definitely have a lot more time now to be putting towards my language studies and then also to be making content. I think definitely there's like a two-part thing to this where not only do I need time to be making videos for Polyglot Progress, but I also need the time to be studying languages to begin with, because otherwise I don't really have so much to talk about on here. I can definitely talk about language phenomenon and like study tips and stuff, but I think what makes Polyglot Progress feel good to me is like when I share my own experience, and that's a little bit difficult when I am not really doing much at the moment. But I definitely, starting in April, started to come back to language learning. I started filming a video that you guys will see at some point soon that kind of captured my learning in April. I did then have to kind of take a break for the second half of April and first half of May because things got real crazy with all of my school stuff. I had so many papers to write, so many exams, just so much to do. Definitely some professors took the moving online thing to mean that we should go a little bit easy on students, and some of them took it to assign quite a bit more work. And then on top of that, I had to finish that senior project and all of that. So things were definitely very crazy, and I had wanted to come back in the beginning of May with videos and realized very quickly that I did not have the time to be doing that. I was waking up, doing schoolwork all day, and then going to bed, so there was not really any time for anything else at all. I feel like now is the first time I'm getting to experience life in quarantine really without the feeling of just like I'm just doing schoolwork all the time anyway. So I guess that's the other life update I should catch you up on. We all know that the pandemic's happening, obviously. Don't really need to catch you up on that, but as many of you probably know, I had moved out of my parents' house seemingly permanently this past August into my own apartment that I was splitting with roommates. So it was my first place that I wasn't living in that was like either campus related or my parents' house or apartment or whatever. But because things are so crazy in New York right now, and because I no longer have a job and I'm not going to school and all of these things, and just to make my parents feel a little bit better, I have moved back home for the next year probably. So I'm finishing out paying my lease, which ends this next August, like this coming August, in New York, but I'm not living there anymore. Slowly moving my stuff out, so moving back home, but I also had given my room here to my sister. So we put me in the guest room, which is much tinier. So while it's great that I have a place to stay and great that my parents can now feel a little bit more comfortable that I'm not living in a hot spot, I don't really have a great filming location right now. So currently I'm outside. It works for the whole summer goals thing, but I'm sure that the lighting and sound and everything is just not fun for anyone right now. I also totally managed to bungle it and leave my camera charger to my larger DSLR that I prefer filming things on in New York, so I can't use that. So I can't use my like hot shoe shotgun mic either. So we're stuck with my tiny little vlogging camera, which looks fine, but doesn't have as great of audio, and like I said, the lighting and stuff might be a little weird right now. So please just bear with me while I set up a place that works as a filming location in this house, and even just set up a space that works more as a permanent bedroom as opposed to a guest bedroom. Our guest space is lovely, but definitely not a place you want to be putting all of your possessions and trying to live inside of for longer than a few weeks, which was what I had originally thought this was going to be. All that said though, the one thing that I can look at as a positive to this whole situation is that I do have some more time to focus on things like language learning that I've been putting off because of school, because of work, etc. And while I would have had this time anyway, I wasn't expecting to not have a job, which, as much as it sucks, also, like I said, gives me a little bit of time to do things like this and things that I care about and enjoy. So I'm gonna try to spin it in that positive way for myself, and hopefully this will also help bring you guys a little bit of positivity throughout all of this. I know watching YouTube stuff has brought some sort of normalcy to my life, it feels like, so hopefully watching language content helps you guys feel a little bit better during all of this, and I hope you're all doing well. So that said, let's get started on my 2020 language plans. The sun is blinding me a little, so we're just gonna move over here for a second. So this is my 4th or 5th year of doing this, and I always kind of do it the same way. I talk about general language goals and then my goals for each specific language. But this year I sort of have a different approach to this. I've planned out pretty much the rest of 2020 language plan-wise because I'm doing something specific. I'm not totally sure actually about the last 4 months of the year, but helpful enough, that means that I have the whole summer planned out pretty much. So what I'm doing right now is I started with the German and I went back to the beginning of the German tutor book and am working my way all the way through it. I'm not done with this because, as I said, I had to take a break mid-April, so I haven't totally finished that yet. But once I finish that book, which was supposed to be at the end of April and now will be at the end of May because I need to pick that up, I will then add in another language. It's gonna end up being Spanish. So then I will be focusing on maintaining my German and studying Spanish back from the basics, kind of reviewing everything because I did take so long off from languages. And so that's gonna be how it goes every single month. I will add whatever was being studied that last month into the maintenance. So at the end of it, I'll have basically all of the languages being maintained. And then each language that's added on, I will essentially start from scratch, reviewing all the basics and then moving forward in it. Whatever I'm maintaining, I also hope to be doing more advanced studies, like furthering the languages as well. But that's the general premise, just because I feel like part of my trouble with coming back to languages, since I've had to take so many breaks recently just due to life, is that it's a little bit overwhelming to go from not studying languages to studying like 5 languages. And I think because I had been studying 5 languages prior to things getting crazy, it felt like that was just kind of what I was supposed to go back to, because it didn't feel super wild and unmanageable when I'd been doing it before everything happened. But because life got in the way, as it does for all of us sometimes, it just became not the place to go back to. So to make it a little bit more manageable, I'm taking it one at a time, also allowing me to go back to the basics, because it has been a long time since I've even used the basics in many of these languages. I really have not been speaking with people or using them that much. May, as I said, the second half is going to be focused on finishing the German tutor book. Then in June, I'm going to start reading the first book of the Percy Jackson series in German. I've talked about this so many times. I think this has been on my summer goals list for probably the past 3 years. Basically ever since I got it in Germany in 2017. I just haven't gotten to it. It is a thick book, so it's a little bit daunting. I've been definitely a little scared to start it. And just in general, I want to be able to go through it in kind of one go instead of reading like a quarter of it and then putting it off for 6 months. So it's been a kind of a thing that I've put off till I have time. I feel like I have time this summer. So I'm gonna do that and start working on Spanish in June. Then in July, it'll be focusing on maintaining German and Spanish. Not exactly sure what I'll be doing for that maintaining yet. Probably still reading Percy Jackson, honestly, for German. And then I'm gonna be adding Italian. I'm gonna be working through Italian tutor for that as well, I think. August will be maintaining German, Spanish, and Italian, and I will be adding in our dear friend Bulgarian. And then I'm not really sure what will happen in the fall, but doesn't really matter so much for this video. I have a feeling though that it will be Bulgarian studies for a little while, just because I've never really been able to get past that beginner phase and feel like I'm fully grasping everything I'm doing. I made it to kind of like an upper beginner level, I'd say, probably, during the Add One challenge, but it wasn't at a level where I felt super confident in things that I was doing that were at an upper beginner level. I felt confident in the basics, but not so much the upper level stuff. So I want to get to a point where I finally feel like I'm at that level, possibly even like an intermediate level would be great. So then beyond that plan, here's how my goals are broken down this summer. I've got my like overall goals, and then I have books that I want to work through study-wise, books and shows and whatnot I want to work through maintenance-wise for like just enjoying languages. And then I also want to do a like video in each language challenge that I'll talk about too. My main goals are to follow that plan, which I just walked you guys through, and also to be studying 30 to 60 minutes a day. That's not counting the like maintenance kind of things like reading, journaling, etc. I want to be spending 30 to 60 minutes going through like textbooks or specifically watching content to take notes on it, of like vocab or grammar points or things like that, or trying to copy accents or things like that. I don't want to be spending 30 to 60 minutes total in language learning. I want to have that 30 to 60 be like really intensive study time, and then also be doing stuff outside of that. I really want to establish this habit so that it can continue when life kind of starts to pick up again. I'd like for it to be a thing where when life is picking up again, I'm able to do this, and it's not that I'm constantly just taking a hiatus from language learning when things are happening in my life. I don't think that's really going to be the case. I genuinely believe that the last few semesters of school, and even just kind of all of my semesters of school in general, were more hectic and crazy than my normal life will be. I was taking more college credits than one probably should, plus working, plus doing other things. So I genuinely think that me working is going to be not like the past 4 years have been, and I will have time to study languages. And even if it seems like I won't, I'll try to make it so that that's the case, because that's the life I want to be living, is one where I'm able to study languages. So I'm really working on getting that habit built into place now. I also want to try to keep up with the Polyglot Progress upload schedule I made for myself. I say try to keep up mainly because I'm still experimenting with what I want exactly, with how often I want to upload and the kinds of things I want to be uploading, etc. So it's going to be kind of a thing that I play around with throughout the summer and may try to change. So I just want to be trying to stick to it and making adjustments as I need to, but not like just not uploading. And then moving on to the specific things that I want to do. I want to work through German tutor and Italian tutor as the German and Italian things. I want to figure out what I want to use for Spanish and then work through that. The ones that I'm currently deciding between are probably Enjoy Spanish, which is the second Teach Yourself one. Spanish Tutor, the benefit to that one is it does go back to the basics, whereas Enjoy Spanish is more of like a continuation of Teach Yourself Spanish. I could see a benefit to both, honestly, or maybe Colloquial 2 for Spanish. That would again be kind of like the Enjoy book in that it's a kind of continuation of things, so I wouldn't necessarily be starting from scratch like I am with the other languages, but I think maybe doing an advanced thing could also have a benefit, both because you're doing something in advanced, but also I'll have to remember the other things in order to keep up. So I haven't totally decided what I'm doing there yet, but I'll figure that out at some point. Either way, those 3 books I don't own. I don't really own a Spanish book at all that could kind of either take me back to the basics or continue stuff. So I kind of have to figure out what book I want to get for that. And then I want to work through either intensive Bulgarian or colloquial Bulgarian, hopefully a little bit of both, maybe just a little bit of both. I still haven't decided which one of those I really think is the better resource for me, or if maybe there's a different resource entirely, like the Teach Yourself Bulgarian series, that maybe I would like. Totally have to figure that out still. But those are the textbooks that I want to work through. I think that it should be totally doable based on my plans for the summer of adding one language at a time and focusing on that. I think that I should be able to work through each of those books in a month if I am committing 30 to 60 minutes a day. Feels totally doable. I think in past years sometimes I've tried to do a lot because I like to push myself. This year's goal is more so to do something that is extremely manageable and hopefully do way more than the things on this list. So hopefully each month I will be like, yep, totally did that and did these 20 other things. Just because I am easing myself back into it. We're trying that approach. For things that I want to read, watch, consume, use to practice using my languages in a normal way, I would like to try to read 5 books in languages other than English. For the past several years, I've set a Goodreads challenge to read 50 books over the course of a year, and I have never made it. I think the closest I got, though, was like 45 books. I did get close at one point. However, other years I've read like 12 books. So this year I set my goal for 30 books, but I'm already at 12 books out of 30, and I actually feel like it could be doable to even up it to 50 this year, just because I have already gotten so many books read. Usually I have not read this many books by this point in the year, but because I was taking 2 literature classes this past semester at school, I was reading a lot. So instead of reading nothing because I'm at school, I was reading 12 books at school, which definitely helped. And then now that I am graduated, don't have any sort of summer internships, which is not a thing that's happened in the past few years, and also I'm not working. I have a lot more time to be reading, and I think that I should make the most of that because I feel like there's a lot of books that I've wanted to read the past 4 years and just haven't gotten to do. So I'm hoping to read 5 in other languages. I want to see if I can read 10 this whole year, because I feel like if I read 50 books the whole year and a fifth of those are in other languages, I feel like that feels like a nice starting balance point. I'd like to eventually get myself to the point where I'm reading 50-50 or like 80-20, where like 50 to 80% of the books I read are not in English and then 20 to 50% are in English, because I am studying all these other languages. I have a working grasp of all these other languages. I don't know why I wouldn't be reading things that I wouldn't normally get the chance to if I didn't know these languages. So the ones that I want to read are Percy Jackson in German. I'd like to finish reading Matilda in Italian. I started this book, I'm like maybe 20 pages in. Definitely have not read it recently at all, so I may even kind of need to go back. But this is a book that I really want to read. I've never read this book. I actually don't think I've read any Roald Dahl's books. I've seen the films, obviously, but I don't think I've ever read a single one. But I really, really loved the movie Matilda when I was younger. I haven't seen that movie in probably 10 or 15 years now, but it was definitely one of my favorites growing up, so I wanted to read the book for a while. And although Italian is not the language it was written in, it's just a fun way for me to get to learn Italian. There's a lot of words, even from those 20 pages that I read, that I definitely didn't learn in other courses because they're so specific and strange. So I'm really excited for that. For Spanish, I'd like to finish reading the Spanish poetry book I have. I cannot tell you the name of it off of the top of my head, honestly. And it also isn't on Goodreads for some reason, but I've been really enjoying it so far. I was going through and practicing translating from Spanish to English in the fall as a way to kind of learn vocab and things, and I feel like that is something that I definitely want to do again, and just finish reading that because there were a lot of poems that I really enjoyed. It's also easy and digestible for something in a nice quick study session to get through like 2 or 3 poems and then be able to put the book down, so I want to do that. I'd like to read something in French. I have no idea what yet, but there's a lot of classics that are written in French that I'd really like to get to read that I haven't read, so I'll probably pick up one of those. I also do have a couple of books that are English books but translated into French that I got while in France that I haven't read yet, so maybe one of those will be what I read. And then that leaves space for one more book, possibly just another thing in French, just because I'll be able to get through that a little bit faster. I am planning on making a TV and movie watch list. That's one of my goals, is to make one of those. I have no idea what it's gonna be yet, but I'd like to just compile a list of films, TV shows, etc. that I'd really like to watch that are in the languages that I study, both to get to watch those films and also get to practice those languages a little bit by watching those films. And then I would also really like to find some podcasts in all of the languages I study that I enjoy. I feel like I get really into a podcast, listen to like 15 episodes like all day, every day for like a week, and then I just stop listening to that podcast forever. That is my podcast kind of routine, and then eventually I'll come back to them, but that tends to be how it is. I'm interested in a little bit of everything, so if you have recommendations for literally any of these languages, let me know. I tried out the Duolingo podcast and I wasn't huge on it just because I feel like there was a little too much English in it for my liking. I would really like something that is just more so full on immersion. I definitely love to get to listen to some podcasts not necessarily on language learning. They could be, but not necessarily on language learning in these other languages as another way to just practice listening and learn a little bit more vocab, a little bit more grammar, etc. And then finally, I have a little challenge for myself that I talked about last year but honestly didn't do at all. If you didn't watch my series last year, the last video was quite literally about how I failed all of my goals. So I'm recycling this one and I've changed it a slight bit. This was inspired by the Add One Challenge, where you make videos at day 0, 30, 60, 90, and then mainly the inspiration was at the end you have to make a 15-minute video in which you have a conversation with someone. So instead of having a conversation with someone, I just set myself certain lengths of time I want to be filming videos for. So this is the length before editing. So this is like the amount of time I want to be able to just like speak for. So for French, I want to film for 30 minutes. I feel like I'll probably surpass this, but I'm again trying to keep it manageable. I don't really know what I would have to talk about necessarily for longer. I feel like I usually film for about 30 minutes when I film a normal video in English. So 30 minutes for French, 20 minutes for German, 15 minutes for Spanish and Italian, and then 10 minutes for Bulgarian. And then I'll edit those and I will post them as diaries on here. I'm not necessarily hoping to talk about my language learning in those. I feel like I usually do that for my diary entries, and I'll continue to do that. I definitely want to be uploading a lot of diaries this summer, but this challenge is more so I want to be able to make like a 15-minute video where I talk about what I ate that day, or a 10-minute video on my skincare routine in Bulgarian or something, just to kind of push the ways that I'm using vocabulary and that sort of thing. So I will definitely upload these videos as well, but I definitely want to talk about just kind of like things in my life and push myself more so to speak for that long, as opposed to using it as a time to kind of document my language learning. Thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear your goals for the summer if you want to comment them down below. I hope that the strange weed hacking noises in the background haven't been too distracting. Hopefully next video I film will be inside in a little bit better of a filming location. Definitely working on that. And I am really excited to be coming back to language learning, really excited to be coming back to posting. If there's anything specific that you're curious about or want to get to see in a video, just let me know and I will try to stick it in there. And I hope that you are all doing okay in this very weird time, and that this summer brings a little bit more positivity for you. I'll see you guys soon, and remember, practice makes progress.